She made him sit down and said, "Now listen to this podcast, the whole thing. Listen to it."
This particular curse was written on clay bowls and then smashed so that it couldn't never be undone. But it can be. By recognizing a pattern, then we can through will can overcome these patterns.
He starts talking about what he called monkeys with human heads that climbed through the window and scared him so bad that he didn't even want to talk about it.
From east of the Mississippi, investigating the unknown. Welcome to the Sixth Sensory Podcast. This is the new age of pirate radio. This is the last vestige of the outlaw.
There's a archaeological component to this also, with the old artifacts from the old pagan world stored inside of this mountain. They had those techniques to move big megaliths.
These legends, they come out of a reality, but it's a spiritual reality that we've so shut down to.
Welcome back to the show. I'm bringing back a past guest today. He really brought the knowledge and some great conversation last time when it comes to giants, mounds, and just our lost North American history. I think he's done the research. In my opinion, he's one of the top names in this discussion. Plus, he's got a new book out. So, Fritz, welcome back to the show.
Oh, thanks. Good to be back on. It's been a few months.
Yeah, it's been a few months. But especially with you having a new book out, I think it's going to be fun to have you back on. I mean, I would just say this. I think your books deserve a spot on people's shelf if they're interested in getting to know more about like the true story of like what really happened in these lands.
Not what they're telling you, that's for sure.
That's exactly. That's what I'm coming to find too. The longer I do this show and the more I look into things, I'm constantly finding new and more fascinating things than what I've been told. Like it seems like whatever happened here was way more interesting than what we're being told. That's for sure.
Yes, and I certainly go deep dive into this in the new book, Ancient America: The Dark Side. And that is not only the paranormal aspect of ancient America, but also particularly go into the complex mathematics of the Newark, Ohio earthworks.
Wow. Yeah, I was going to say, I think last time we talked, you told me about some things you had planned that were coming up. It seemed like you were about to start looking into the abyss and kind of going into this more darker side of this history. So I got to ask, how was your Halloween? Did you go out and see some mounds on Halloween night?
Well, I had clouds October 31st. Now, last October 30, or the year before this, last October 31st, I was in Newark, Ohio for the solar alignment there at the large Newark hinge. That's the big circle, which is a hinge that is 3,700 feet in circumference. So it's, 3/4 of a mile just to walk around this thing. But the gateway, if you're standing on the inside, the sun will rise on May 1st, Beltane. And then the solar opposite of Beltane is October 31st. So there, if you're standing outside of the hinge looking in, facing west, the sun will set right on the gateway. And so got some great photographs, and those are in the new book. You can see that and see that what we have is we have a Celtic alignment of the
Mm.
May 1st and October 31st. And, the Celts practiced that. But before them, it actually originated with the Amorites in Mesopotamia. And then, it was also found in throughout the biblical lands where there were different earth circles and stuff with that alignment. So again, we can trace something from the Ohio Valley and associate back into the Levant, Babylon, and then of course with the accounted giants in the Bible known as the Amorites, who controlled Babylon from 2000 BC to about 1600 BC. But also of interest with them is that they were the first to really employ what we know as advanced mathematics of pi, square roots of numbers, trigonometry. And because they were, you know, people were buying and selling parcels of land, uh, it required geometry and trigonometry. And we find, and surveying skills, and we find all of this within this circle and octagon at the Newark Earthworks, and then its relationship to the hinge, and then the hinge's relationship to a square earthwork that is adjacent to that. Just for an example here, I just mentioned that the circle or the hinge was 3,700 feet in circumference, and the square has four sides, each being 925 feet. So the sum total of the square's four walls is also 3,700 feet. So this is what was considered in the ancient religion of the ancient geometry was the pinnacle of their art, and that was either having a circle and a square with the same area, or a circle and a square with the same perimeter. And we see both of those playing out back and forth in the relationship within the earthworks there at Newark.
Incredible stuff. I mean, it's almost like, well, we know that they had this understanding of the stars. So astrology and astronomy play a part of this, but it seems like there's actually some very, very dense mathematics involved with that fascination with the heavens here.
Yes. At the Newark earthworks, of course, the octagon, all eight of the openings in the octagon are each aligned to a lunar standstill in its 18.6 year movement from north to south, which takes 18.6 years. So that is going to culminate in May, where the moon will rise through the main axis of the circle and the octagon. I would encourage people, just look up Newark earthworks and you can see what we're talking about. And you can see the circle. And then there's a parallel that connects the circle with the octagon. This May, you're going to be able to stand in the circle and then look down the parallels that lead into the octagon, and a gateway there. And that is going to align in May. And so that's only going to happen every 20 years, basically. So it would be a good time. Now, I don't know what Ohio is doing. The goofballs at the Ohio History Connection put out a statement that they thought maybe they would limit the people that could attend to Native Americans, which is,
Okay.
how do you, if you're a Native American, you don't get a Native American card.
Yeah,
And
sure.
I've been to powwows, and there was certainly more people with blonde and red hair than with black hair. So I think Native American is something that you identify with and isn't really a cultural or a bloodline. I think it's just something, if you want to be a Native American, then that is your choice. And that should be your choice in May. So whatever you do when you go there, say, I'm Native American. Pick your tribe and enjoy yourself too. Hot dogs and free balloons for the kids.
Yeah, well, there's a very common phrase you'll hear often uttered in the South, and that is, "My grandmother was Cherokee," so that alone should probably get you in.
Uh, yes. And I only live about 4 blocks from the largest genealogical library in the country, which allowed me to do a lot of the research that no one else was able to do. I had poured through 10,000, I mean, actual books. This is before stuff was online, and still not a lot of it's not online. But oh, who's the famous Indian from out east? Pocahontas.
Yeah.
Everyone related. Well, they found out I'm related to Pocahontas. Like, oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
But that was their score. If they up in genealogy, you can trace a bloodline to
Yeah.
Pocahontas.
Well, so I know we're talking about Newark, but I was just want to throw this in for maybe like a comparison. I was looking kind of into Mound State Park, and I was just kind of looking at just the setup there, and that great mound there has what they call bevels that align to true north, and there's an alignment to the solstice, and there's also an alignment there with a star called Fomalhaut, very obscure star, but it's like a sun that's twice the size of our own. I just found that very interesting. But those alignments there, is that something that we're seeing kind of all over the Ohio Valley in Newark as well?
Mount State Park is a little bit different than some of the others because at Mount State Park, the alignment of the summer and winter solstice, like I said, Baumholt, the Star Regal, um, they were lined up not with the gateway of the hinge, but they were aligned to the other earthworks. So there's like 3 earthworks all together, and then that is your alignment for your solstices. So they use the earthworks around it for the alignments and not the gateway itself, which is something different that we normally don't see. It's the gateway itself that acts as the alignment to a solar event. Now, I was there November 1st because with the information that I had, the North Hinge was going to align with the October 31st sunset. So again, at Newark, where I could stand outside of the earthwork and the sun would have set. This was based on the degree of angle that the Indiana Geological Survey had done in 1915 of the site. And then if you go to timeanddate.com, you can find the angle of where your sunrises and your sunsets are going to be. When I did that, I was 5 degrees off. Now, one, I went a day late, and then I was 5 degrees off. And I don't know if I needed to get there 5 days early. So when I did, I got it. I was about 5 degrees off. And that some of that could be attributed to earth tilt, but we're not seeing that at Newark. And I don't know if that is because, the Newark hinge is so massive. So the gateway to the Newark hinge is probably 5 times the size of the gateway at Mound State Park.
Wow.
And that might have had something to do with it. So I don't think that one's shot yet. But what I'm found is that different earthworks in Paint Creek Valley, Baum earthworks seep earthworks, Spruce Hill is there, that all of those earthworks actually had different alignments with May 1st. And some of them were actually used of a stone. Spruce Hill sits on this hill in Paint Creek Valley.
Mm-hmm.
And it was with this stone, but they were all aligned to May 1. And so May 1 and October 31 is really coming to the forefront, not just in Newark and at Mount State Park, but other earthworks in the Ohio Valley. And it's something that archaeologists certainly haven't looked into, because when I was bringing up solar alignments of earthworks 10 years ago, to them, it was blasphemous. It's like that doesn't happen. None of this is any kind of solar alignments, even to the point that they were fighting that the Serpent Mound was aligned to the summer solstice sunset, which is, obvious if you're there that, that alignment is dead on. And they were saying that it was mere coincidental that it was happening, that it certainly wasn't built for that purpose. So that is slowly starting to fall away with a lot of the misinformation and doublespeak that's coming, via universities that's, and their
Yeah.
agenda of stupidity they promote.
Yeah. Yeah. Last time you were on, you actually had a story that involved a previous guest. That was great, man. It was like, I think it was like the guy that had come on like right before you had a story with him, which it just kind of lined up with. And it seemed like this story had a couple of like very interesting components, which were mounds, sort of chasing down this ancient history. There was UFO like it was like almost like a UFO like encounter too, what you experienced. And you told it at the very end of that episode. I'm not going to make you tell it again, but I say all that to say I know you've had these paranormal experiences. You've had several. So did
Yes,
that did that kind of influence you to do this book?
yes, yes. I had paranormal experiences at Fort Hill. I'd seen a shadow person when I was up there at the main gateway, which is basically two serpent heads coming together on the one end. And I had seen a shadow person up there, and then I had someone contact me, not knowing that I had seen that. But then him and his friend were up there, and they had seen a shadow person. When I asked, like, where were you? It's like, well, I was up there, at the end where the gateway is. Like, yeah, that's where I was. And so they saw it really at the same spot that I did. And he was somewhat into paranormal, but his friend was absolutely not. And his friend was pretty shaken up, with what he saw up there,
Mm-hmm.
which I can understand. I was well, and I was up there alone, which generally I was, with these mound sites. So he had seen that, and then there's another account of a man and a woman. The man was a military guy, so like his wife described him as, no nonsense type of person. But they saw this cryptid, I guess, is what we would call it. But it was this thing, if you can just imagine, its legs cut off at the hip, but it was walking backwards, but it had no torso.
Right.
So it was these legs walking backwards, kind of across the road. They both saw it. They
Wow.
had somebody draw it, and so the drawing of what they saw is in the book. So there's a lot of activity around Fort Hill, and I'm going tomorrow. I'm going to spend a day with Newark Paranormal, and then I'm going to go back, and we're going to hit. I'm going to go to Geller Hill there in Newark, and Geller Hill, if you're not familiar with it, it's one of the places that, if you're really not aware of, I mean, the Newark earthquakes, of course, everyone's going to see the circle in the octagon and then the large henge. But if you draw a line from that connects the center of the octagon to the center of the hinge to Geller Hill. It creates a perfect isosceles triangle. So the distance is 7,200 some odd feet
Hmm.
from both the octagon and from the hinge. And then it goes. Now, Geller Hill is the highest point of land around there. And then on top of that is a series of burial mounds. And I was with Newark Paranormal on a shoot with L.A. Marzulli in his Search of the Nephilim series. And I kind of did it on a whim where I said, I contacted them because I had an interest. Like, why don't you go to one of these sites? Just let me know if you pick anything up. And they were up at Geller Hill in the summer. It was like 80 degrees, and they said within a second, the temperature dropped to like 55 degrees for like 10 seconds.
Mm.
And, so they had, readings on that. Is there anything that could have be attributed to, so no storms, no cold front, nothing like that coming in. And then when they did come on the shoot with L.A. Marzulli, and they have a thing called an SLS. And then if you point this, it's sending out these beams of light. But if you watch the paranormal shows, when you see the stick figures, then that's what we got there. This thing was about 8 foot, standing in this next to this tree, and then sometimes it would be in the tree. And there was a girl that was with the Newark Paranormal team, and she walked down, brave girl, walked down underneath this thing, and the thing kept patting her on the head. So it
Wow.
lasted a good long while. And then they had another, I don't know if it was an ovulus, something like that. It was spitting out words of witch and evil, demon. It was just crazy. I mean, just all this evidence coming together. So that was exciting. That was the first time I'd actually had a paranormal, team that was gathering evidence like that. And so going back, and we're going to see what we can find on Saturday.
Okay, I actually went to your Facebook page and I saw where you included an excerpt from your book. And I might just toss this in because you've already made this public. Uh, it says this is somebody's account that you took, and it says it was pale. It was a pale and slim body where you could see every bone and muscle in its body. It had almost spears for arms. They were really long and they hovered above the head at the joints. Its head was kind of disfigured and it looked like it had two sets of eyes on each side of its head. The jawline was had sharp disfigured teeth.
Yeah, that was a guy from Mansfield, Ohio, I believe. And where he saw that was kind of a hot spot where there was at one time a lot of burial grounds. And so
Mm.
that so it was kind of like this gray giant lizard thing, but
Wow.
it had shovels for arms. So not like a lizard, but it was shovels that stuck way out. And that was his drawing. I don't know if he drew it or he had somebody else draw it. But that was I was like, this is what you saw. I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly what.
Did
Yeah,
it have like a
yeah. So that.
insectoid type of a face?
Um. Well, I mean, I remember him saying that the skin was translucent,
Whoa.
so you could see underneath the skin,
Yeah.
but it
Wow.
wasn't. It wasn't anything that could have been mistaken for a current animal or lizard or anything like that. It was so different that there was no doubt that he had seen something that was probably cryptid, I guess is the best way we could describe that.
Yeah, that sounds like a cryptid to me. And when you get a description like that or an encounter like that, and you find it, you're these people are describing these very obscure details, that to me lends to the fact that they probably did see something. Because when they're having a hard time explaining the way it looked, it points to there being something that they actually saw, if that makes any sense. I think some of these
Yeah.
encounters of people are just confused about what they saw, and they're doing the best they can to describe this weird thing. And sometimes it was the best type of encounters, I think. And, for this new book, did you find yourself like, I don't know, like maybe like John Keel? Did you find that you're becoming a sort of a paranormal researcher in terms of collecting encounter stories for this book?
Yes. Not only in my personal, but then when the word gets out there, then people are ready to come forward and tell their stories. And I don't, the new thing is that this is the first of people doing any kind of paranormal research on these ancient sites. And it evolved or started with me because I know from the book of Enoch when he was talking about the giants, it was said that the spirits of the giants would be earthbound. So these are souls that did not move on. They didn't go to a heaven or a hell or anything else. They're here, which goes with burial mounds that are portals where the dead can come in and out of. And they were also used as a portal because it was believed the living could connect with the dead through or via these burial mounds. And then we can even take that further with the ancient geometer art was to conceive these temples geometrically by including circles and squares together that would take the um, material and transpose that into the spiritual. And so these temples, earthen temples in and of themselves, were used as portals from this life to the next. So uh, it's going to be interesting because nothing has ever been done on the Circle and Octagon. So we'll be going there on Saturday and just see if there's anything going on.
Yeah.
And this is going to end sometime, maybe now, but just one of the dumbest moves ever in this country. They now have declared this the Octagon and Circle and Octagon a UNESCO site, which puts it on some World Heritage, like Stonehenge is that. So as soon as they did that, you can no longer go into Stonehenge. So now instead of having a golf course where the whole entire thing is mowed, all of the earthen banks are mowed, and when I was there in oh June of this year, maybe it was. Um, Somebody had given there's an archaeologist on L.A. Marzulli's team, and there was supposed to be a standstill at one of the gateways, and I went there in the summer. Of course, the moon rises at dark, so stopped in the clubhouse, told some kid, "Hey, I want to go out here and go. Do you got any golfers out there?" Now they're all in. All right, anything going on? He goes, "Well, watch out for the sprinklers. Those will be coming on." Okay, know a little bit about golf courses, but no problem. No problem walking out there. They were totally cool. You're not going to go there during the day when the golfers are there, but if you want to go in the evening, you could probably go really early in the morning. But in the wintertime, they're not playing golf. So you have 4 or 5 months to have, and it's better to go in the winter anyway because you can see everything. There are trees, in the octagon, and that does obscure your view. of the earthwork and some of the gateways. And, that's all going to be opened up in the wintertime, which is what you want. So I thought it was a really nice balance. Here you had a golf course that was, maintaining the site on their dime. But, they were pretty cool about going out there. And it all started with some Native American who wanted to go out there right in the middle of some golf tournament and thought it was her right to go out there and have a powwow.
Mm-hmm.
And they said no.
Yeah.
And she was like, "This is mine." And it's like, well, is it? Is it yours?
Well, and
And
who
if it is
knows,
yours,
that could have been
then
staged too. That could have been totally staged so that they could come in there and claim it as UNESCO and lock it down. I'm just thinking outside the box here. That's just speculation, but it seems like that's how this
that
kind
started
of
it. Yeah, that started it.
yeah. And like whenever UNESCO comes in and they sort of kind of, I guess they, in some scenarios they'll just lock the public out, but they'll offer tours, right? But you have to go and sit through a tour where you're hearing somebody else's narrative.
Probably that. And, right now it's free. So I would look probably in the future, there's going to be a charge
Yeah,
to
that too.
even see it.
All right. Thanks again for tuning in and listening to the show. This is a short bonus episode, but there is an extra hour of this conversation you can check out up on my Patreon. You can go and get the full episode here with Fritz, plus other full bonus episodes there. And as always, there will be a brand new episode available here on Friday. But in the meantime, check out Fritz's new book, Ancient America, The Dark Side, which we do indeed get more into that dark side in the last hour of this episode. So if you can help support the show, go check out the Patreon, get some bonus episodes, and as always, break the mold, conquer the realm, and thanks for listening.